most of the deck is decent, which is surprising for a boat that's this old. However, in the cockpit, it's a different story. What it appears as though is something hit here, who knows when. It obviously damaged the outer skim, and ever since then water has been creeping in, and now this is very soft and it needs to be replaced. So I temporarily have this wooden bottle jack set up here because it looks as though the cockpit itself has actually dropped a little bit. And the reason why I say that is because when you look over here, you can see the crack that's running along this section. Well, there is a little bit of a heave here. This is actually where the only support is, directly under in this location. So it looks as though the whole cockpit sunk down. Of course, this post is what's keeping this section up. So what I was trying to do with the bottle jack was to raise the whole, carefully raise the whole underside here back up to that main level. It's a bit scary though, because as I'm increasing the height of the jack, I'm hearing these little cracks, which doesn't really doesn't make you feel good, I'll tell you that. What's the plan here? Of course, well, obviously this all has to be repaired. So we're going to cut out this top layer. And of course, then scoop out all of the rotten core. I'm not sure how far that goes back, but obviously everything that's rotten will have to be removed. Then we're going to put in, most likely, just a marine grade 1/2 inch plywood. I'm not going to be putting in like a foam material or anything like that. Fiberglass over the top of that, and then a skim coat and paint over the top to renew the whole floor. So that's the plan here. What I'm also seeing now is that this support is cracked. Look, I don't know if there's a thin bit of epoxy that has been put over it, but I can't leave it like that. So what I will probably end up doing is maybe even getting a 3/4 inch plywood and building kind of a wall up through here, and then maybe another type of support a little bit further down as well, almost like another little bulkhead or something, because I can't leave it. I can't leave it like that. No one really wants to be cutting into their boat. It's a weird feeling. The way to view this though is the damage is already done, so I'm really not making it worse. So this is a repair that must be made, so here we go. I'll tell you one thing, doesn't smell very good. Well, that escalated a little more quickly than I intended. I thought it was just going to be a little spot in the cockpit floor, but as I started to remove material, the moisture, the water has really crept through a lot of the core. So as you can see behind me, I actually ended up having to remove more than I intended. Not fun. I'm going to need help probably with my fiberglass technique putting this back together. Okay, you want to just take this brush and just get in over behind your knee there, in that small spot there. I'll take that from you. Just make sure you get that core nice and wet. Okay. I just want to fill underneath that glass first. Well, good morning. It's the next morning. I want to thank Steve again for helping me with this. I'm certainly inexperienced when it comes to fiberglass, so I really appreciate his help and his expertise with this. I think that's a real shout out to the boating community. Steve has his own boat, Wild Child. It's a Kirby 30. And, you know, normally I'll race against him, but here he is helping me out, trying to get me on the water, which I really do appreciate. Everything has seemed to dry up nicely here. A little bit of a time crunch though. I checked the weather and rain is supposed to be coming this afternoon. So I want to get some layers of fiberglass over the top. This is not something I've done before, but Steve tells me that I can handle this. So anyway, the first step is to sand all of the work area, and then clean the work area. So first a vacuum and then acetone wipe, and then it's starting to mix up the resin, and away we go. I think I'm going to go with something a little more aggressive, put a sanding disc on my grinder. That hopefully will speed it up a little bit. All right, we're just about to start. I have sanded away the material, just the loose waxy material that was on top. Cleared with acetone, and now I have a piece of fiberglass cloth. This is 1808 cloth that's cut out in the size that just slightly overlaps the repaired section. I wonder if I can show you here, one sec. There we go. So it's just slightly larger than the core material that we've put in. I have my materials ready to go. So my polyester resin, I'm going to pour 500 mils into this cup. And then Steve gave me this wonderful device. I don't really know what it's called actually. It's probably some simple name. The hardener is in here, and I'll measure out. I'm going to use 1% hardener given the temperature. So I'll just be filling it to the 5 mark here. We'll stir. I'll wet out the plywood underneath, and then we'll start laying down the fiberglass. A little nervous. I should also mention it's very hot here today, very humid. It's well over, well, it's probably 32 degrees Celsius right now. It's early in the morning, it's expected to get warmer. So that may have, I'm not sure what kind of effect that'll have on what I'm trying to do here. I hope it's not too hot for that type of work. Again, it's my naivety in the process. I'm moving forward with it anyway, we'll see. So I do have everything laid out, however. I have my rollers ready, my stir sticks ready. Yeah. All right, here we go. All right, I've measured out my 5 mils of hardener, and I have 500 mils of resin ready to go. So we'll start stirring. Okay, plywood is wetted out. Changed gloves. Now we're going to put down the fiberglass. So far everything is fine except for down along this corner. Maybe I need some more resin. So one thing I'm finding is you really can't have enough of these nitrile gloves. They get sticky quick. I've been replacing them out quite a bit. So we're just about to sound like Darth Vader with this mask on. Anyway, now we're about to mix up our second, so the 500 mils of resin. This is for the second coat. So again, we're going to dispense 5 mils because we're using 1%. I'm not really sure how long I'm supposed to mix this. I know yesterday Steve said if it starts to turn gray, you're in trouble. It's not turning gray. I guess we just make sure it's well mixed. Mixing for a few minutes now, so we're just about ready to lay this down. I think I'll do the exact same thing that I did the last time. We'll re-wet the top of the first surface, then I'll lay the cloth on top and then spread over again, and that seemed to work well the first time. People who do fiberglass regularly must be shaking their heads at me. Oh, that was a race. It's warm and it really started to harden quickly. Anyway, it's down. There doesn't appear to be any real bubbles or anything. I hope it's okay. All right, I was happy with the floor of the cockpit. That looks pretty good, actually. I was quite happy with myself for my first attempt. But right around the edges where the fiberglass, well, the seams, I guess you could say, there is a bit of lifting in a couple spots, which isn't good. So what I'm going to have to do now is grind those sections out. I'll add some thin strips, and then we'll move on from there after that. This is what I mean right here. Are you able to see this? See how it's lifted up right here? So this, I'm going to have to grind this out and then add thin strips to fill in and cover this section. That's nice. I should have thought that through. Dust in the camera. So one thing Stephen told me when doing this is to make sure you have everything laid out before you start mixing up the resin. So I have my paint trays out, my rollers out, I have my strips cut. So now we're going to go ahead with mixing up the resin. I will coat the surface first, lay the cloth into it, smooth over the top. All right, there we go. Rolled out around the seams, around the edges here, so there's no more pockets. Hopefully this will set up nice. And then to finish the fiberglass work, I'm going to get some thickened resin. I decided to go around the outer surfaces. So right now I'm just trying to make a template frame for the new little bulkhead that I'm going to put in here. Just trying to go around with little sheets around the perimeter and then trace it onto the plywood that eventually is going to fit in here. There's the dry fit. All right, it's a new day. I don't know what day it is. Day 800. I don't know. Seems like it. Busy day, exciting day though, because I really can feel like I'm getting close to the end of these boat projects. Very close to putting the boat in the water. Anyway, today, well, you can see behind me here on the ground, I've cut out a piece of plywood. This is going to act as a bit of a mini bulkhead or a cockpit floor support. What was in there, as you saw before, was just a single post. The whole cockpit floor sunk around this post. That caused the cockpit floor to be pushed up in that one section, caused some cracking. Now all that's been taken out. In fact, the support itself has been cut and removed just so we could lower and have a nice flat surface to build on, to build in the new core material. So that's all been done. But now I'm going to raise up the cockpit floor to where it should have been originally. And then this mini bulkhead here will kind of be the new support for that area. Of course, you don't just put the raw plywood in. I'm going to wet this out with some polyester resin. Then I'll go over it with the thickened resin. That's going to fill in the little like knots and crevices that are, it's just standard plywood here. Can't get marine plywood locally. Once that is setting up, then I'll go on to the boat, and I'm going to be removing the areas where there's paint and gel coat, getting it down to the bare fiberglass. That will enable me then to fiberglass in this section. And of course, I'll put epoxy over it and paint later. But we're very close. I'm very excited. Okay, so we put down just a layer of polyester resin, then we put thickened down. Then I laid some cloth into it, and then I went over again with polyester resin. We'll let that set for a bit. It's a bit dusty, this work. I made a bit of a mess down here too. Darn it. So we just finished sanding away the gel coat, a little bit of the paint. We're down to bare fiberglass right now. I've vacuumed up the dust. I've just cleaned it with some acetone. So we're ready to insert the new bulkhead. What I'm going to do is mix up some thickened poly resin again. That'll go around the outside of the bulkhead. Of course, it'll go along the bare fiberglass regions, and of course it'll also butt up here against this little ledge. The bulkhead will fit in here. We'll get it set, and then we'll start adding a little bits of cloth around the edge. And of course I still have my old bottle jack here holding up the cockpit floor. What I'm trying to do is to get it to a consistency, a thickness you could say, where it will actually stick onto the wall and not run down. When we're close, I just keep adding filler little bits by little bits. We're almost there. I shouldn't be taking breaks, but this is what I'm going after right there, just filling in the space with the thickened epoxy. You could see that. But I can't stop right now. I'm gonna go. Okay, that's that. All right, that was actually kind of a bit comical, maybe even ridiculous what I was trying to do there. I was trying to operate a camera while trying to apply the thickened resin. So of course you have it all over your gloves. You're trying to start and stop the camera, which is ridiculous. And of course, meanwhile, the whole mixture is thickening. So that's a rookie mistake, I guess, in terms of this trying to vlog stuff. Anyway, it's in right now. It's a bit rough, and it'll require sanding just to smooth out some of the quick areas that I threw stuff down on. But you know, that's fine. I also a little bit misjudged where I needed to sand. I sanded a little bit too far forward, so I'm going to have to come in with the grinder again and just move the gel coat and the paint back again, just so I have more fiberglass to stick to. Anyway, it's not my day job. I'm just putting some fairing compound down on the floor of the cockpit. So I've already de-waxed this. And now, as I said, fairing compound. I don't really enjoy this work. I think you need a lot of patience for this. Anyway, I'm getting it down, then we'll sand, then we'll paint. And I'll explain why we're using the epoxy later. Yeah, so I'm going with the epoxy fair as opposed to polyfair. And that was an option to use the polyfair compound. and then I could put a gel coat over it, which probably is more closely with what originally came on the boat, I'm assuming. But the little bit of research I've been doing, it seems like the polyfair process is a little more tedious and time consuming. Apparently it will shrink as it cures. I think there's more talent that's needed with that. That's what I'm learning. The epoxy fair, which I already had, of course, but it's faster to use. There's no shrinkage, so I can quickly put this down, do a light sand, and then cover with an epoxy paint. You can't put gel coat over the epoxy, is what I've learned, but that's fine. So it's just the epoxy fairing compound, sanded out, cover with epoxy paint, and then there's going to be a deck paint that goes over everything anyway, so like that'll be textured. I don't need a perfectly smooth surface here. By the way, this is the fairing compound I'm using. The bucket on the right is the actual fairing compound, and the white up here is the hardener. You mix them 2 compound to 1 hardener, so it's a 2-to-1 ratio for the mix. There you go. We'll let that set up now and we'll sand it a bit later. You know, some people are real talented at this type of work. They put it on so smoothly and beautifully the first time, and they require very little sanding. I'm not one of those people. I'm probably the worst at this type of work. It's not smooth, it's pretty rough. It was kind of a race between getting it on and before it hardens or thickens too much. Anyway, I said before though, it doesn't have to be perfect because there's going to be a textured deck, like an all grip going on anyway. There you have it. So just over the epoxy fairing, I'm going to put down this easy epoxy polyurethane, well, topside paint, just like it says right there. Just the covering on. It's not perfect, I know. I don't mean it to be perfect because I said I'm going to put the textured all grip stuff over it anyway, so it's not meant to be a smooth finish, and I'm in a bit of a rush, so